There ain't no high like rock and roll. Yeah, I love that song. Helix did it back in '83. They're a Canadian band. It's off their No Rest for the Wicked album, in case you want to check it out. Anyways, that's my motto. I don't need all that other crap to get high. Just give me a Fender guitar, a Marshall stack, and hit an open chord, and I'm there. Hi, my name's Ricky. Ricky Blaze. Well, that's my stage name. My real name is Richard Bellington. But that doesn't sound too rock and rollish now, does it? My friends call me Ace, because of my favourite guitarist, Ace Frehley, from Kiss. They're only the best theatrical rock band ever. I have all 31 of their albums, plus a few bootlegs, and I've seen them live in concert at least 15 times. Last time I went to see them, I went with Donovan. He's a customer here. He's deathly afraid of that girl that works in the floral section. But that's a different story. I play guitar in an 80s rock heavy metal cover band called Blackened Image. Maybe you've heard of us? No? Oh, okay then. Moving on. I work at dairy here at Barnaby's. It's not the most glamorous gig in the world, but it pays the bills. I mess with the LP guy, Winston, a lot. He follows me around, watching me. I guess he thinks I'm gonna steal stuff because of my long hair and tattoos. I like to take stuff from one aisle, carry it around a little bit, and then drop it off in another aisle, just to mess with him. I heard he had a breakdown or something a year ago, but that's a different story. Now let me tell you, Barnaby's is a very old store. The pallet jacks we use to unload the trucks are ancient. We don't have any of those multi-battery powered electric jacks that big name stores do, no way. We have manual pallet jacks. For those of you that don't know what a manual pallet jack is, it's a piece of machinery that's used to move pallets from one place to another. It has two metal forks on wheels, connected to a safety bar on wheels, connected to a metal crank handle with an adjustable lever attached to it. You have to manually roll it into the open end of a pallet, then push down on the lever, then crank it up by repeatedly pushing up and down on the handle. This will raise the pallet. Then, pull it to wherever you're going and hope that you're strong enough to pull the 4,000 plus pound pallet that's on it. Then push the lever up to lower it into its place. It's a real pain in the butt. Anyway, a couple of the guys have told me that they've turned in some stories to Mr. Barnaby about weird and strange things that happen here. Now, this story will rock your socks off. I've never seen anything like this before. I even wrote a song about it. But that's a different story. Before I tell you this, I can't emphasize enough that I do not use drugs of any sort, and I gave up drinking 18 years ago. So this was not a hallucination caused by either of the two. Now, check this out. It was late August, around 8 o'clock in the morning, and there was a full moon the night before. Now, everyone knows a full moon brings out the crazies, and a lot of weird stuff happens during that time. We just received our dairy truck. Stuart let the driver in, then went out front for a smoke, leaving just me and the driver alone in the back room. Now, our contract with the supplier says that the driver must unload the pallets from the truck and place the pallets on the backroom floor, and the associates will put them where they need to go. It's a liability issue or something. I don't really know. Anyway, he opened up the roll-up door to the truck, and immediately we heard a low squeaking noise coming from inside the truck. I thought it was a refrigeration unit going bad, but I was way wrong. The driver and I put the large metal plank across the opening between the loading dock floor and the back of the truck. The driver then started to unload the pallets. After each pallet, the squeaking noise got louder. 4 pallets of freight and 3 pallets of milk later, the noise was almost deafening. All that remained at this point was a full pallet of eggs. The driver took the jack into the truck, went under the pallet, jacked it up, and started to unload it from the truck. Apparently, he didn't have the pallet jacked up high enough, because it hit the metal plank, causing it to shift and fall down into the opening. The front wheel of the pallet jack then fell into the gap opening as well, Momentum took over, causing the pallet to fall forward. The safety bar gave way, and the pallet came crushing down upon the driver, who fell backwards, slamming his head onto the concrete floor. Blood and brains were pouring out the back of his head, as the massive weight of the pallet lay upon him. I knew he was dead. I was standing over by the baler when it happened. Tommy and Zeke had just got done making a bale, so the baler was empty. I don't mess with that thing unless I absolutely have to. I heard about what happened to Stephanie, but that's a different story. Now, brace yourself, because what happened next is something that nightmares are made of. As the pellet of eggs came crushing down on the driver, the eggs obviously broke. You would have expected egg whites and yolks to come pouring out of the boxes, but no. It was blood. Lots of it. The squeaking noise was a fever pitch. Suddenly, the boxes started to shake. A scratching noise was heard as well. The boxes began to rip open, and these things came flying out and crawling out. Dead ones fell out and just laid there on the floor, until these things started to eat their bodies. It was so gross. Now, let me tell you about these things. They were little chicks, but they weren't like normal little chicks. No, they were like half bat, half chick, like a vampire chick. I dated a goth chick once. It's kind of the same thing. Well, not really. Never mind. Anyway, they just kept coming. They were everywhere. There had to be at least around 100 of them. They had little chick bodies with little bat wings, a chick head with a bat face, and a beak. These things were cool looking, but mean as hell. I jumped in the baler and closed the safety gate, afraid for my life, as some of them attacked the truck driver's dead carcass, while others completely annihilated the back room. They ripped at the driver's flesh. They tore his arms apart, his neck and his face, pulling the skin and tissue straight off the bone and eating it. They gouged out his eyes with their beaks and ate them too, like an eye meatball. Blood was everywhere. It was horrifying. Through the safety gate, I saw them finish off the driver, until there was nothing left but the skeletal remains. Meanwhile, the others were tearing open bags of sugar, boxes of cereal, and cases of water, among other things, creating a huge mess all over the backroom floor. I pulled out my phone and called 911. I didn't really know how to explain what was going on, so I just told them there was an accident, and to send out the cops, the coroner, and animal control. I hung up from them, just in time to see one of these things fly into a 2-litre bottle of Coke. Its beak penetrated the bottle, and the pressure blew him and the soda straight across the back room, slamming into the bay doors. That was hilarious. I had to hold back the laughter so they wouldn't find me hiding in the baler. The little guy was okay though. He got up, shook it off, and went back to eating stuff. The cops and animal control showed up about 10 minutes later, sirens blaring. I guess the sirens hurt their ears because they all stopped at the same time. They let out a blood-curdling squeak in unison. Some ran for the small openings between the fallen pallets and the bay doors, trying to escape through the field behind the store. Others ran through the double doors onto the sales floor. Horrific screams of terror could be heard soon after. I opened the safety gate and climbed out of the baler. I ran to the bay door and saw those things running in the pack, just through the field, and heading towards the neighbouring housing development. There was nothing I could do. I then turned and headed for the sales floor. The screams were getting louder and more intense. I walked through the doors, turned the corner, and saw what I can only describe as the attack scene from The Birds, that old Alfred Hitchcock film. Vertigo, Psycho, Rear Window, nothing? Never mind. Anyway, groups of these things were attacking the customers and eating their flesh, just like the truck driver. People were running and screaming, jumping over the dead bodies as these things tore at the hair and the clothes until they succumbed to the attack and fell to their death. I hid behind a huge Velveeta cheese display so they couldn't see me. Suddenly, multiple gunshots could be heard. Many large metal canisters come flying to the front of the store, smashing into walls, displays, and the floor. releasing what I assumed was tranquilizer gas into the air. I began to cough violently and soon passed out. I woke up about half an hour later in the back of an ambulance. The doors were wide open, and from my point of view, I could see multiple ambulances and coroner vehicles. EMTs and coroner personnel were loading dead bodies into the back of them. Animal control personnel were pushing huge boxes that read "hazardous waste" on the side. They loaded it into the back of a flatbed truck, then left. The ambulances and coroners left as well. The cops came and took my statement, and they left too. I was released from the ambulance, as there was nothing physically wrong with me. I stood there in the parking lot with the other survivors. Some employees, some customers. People were crying, shaking, and talking about what had happened. I was just glad to be alive. For some strange reason, the cops didn't shut down the store at this time. They told Pat it was safe to go back to work. That was odd. Anyway, Pat did shut down the store for a little while, though. He made Stephen and the rest of us clean up the mess on the sales floor in the back room, then opened the store back up at about an hour later. By this time, it was about 12:30. I was getting hungry, so I decided to take my lunch. After all that, you wouldn't think I'd be hungry. But I've got a stomach of steel. I watch too many horror movies for stuff like that to affect me. I went into the cooler and grabbed my lunch bag. Ironically, my girlfriend made me a chicken salad sandwich with some chips. I know, right? I sat down at the break room table and started to eat. Suddenly, I heard a little squeaking noise coming from behind the trash can. I grabbed someone's umbrella that was sitting by the wall and prepared to beat the living crap out of that thing if it tried to attack me. I gently moved the trash can to find a little chick. A normal little chick, just sitting there, shaking and chirping, like it was scared. I picked him up and fed him some of my sandwich. If he only knew. I guess he was hungry, because he stopped chirping at this point. I kept him in my jacket pocket till the end of my shift, then took him home with me. I bring him to all of our band practices, and we're thinking about making him the band mascot. What do you think? Anyway, it took me a little while to come up with a name for him. Then I thought about it. I decided to name him Gizmo.